If you're looking to compete in an Ironman, are interested in fitness, or maybe you're curious about how high-performing athletes think and operate, then today's episode might be useful. My guest today is Fraser Minnican. He's a former international level swimmer, triathlete, and husband who was recently crowned champion of Iron Man Portugal in October of 2024. Fraser and I delve into tons of topics, including the influence Fraser's father had on his sporting career, whether he enjoyed an upbringing heavily centred around sport, why Fraser decided to quit swimming at the national level, why he prioritised his degree over his swimming career, how it felt to tell his dad he was retiring from swimming, how many races a year Fraser believes is optimal for him, why Fraser doesn't like social media and won't let strangers follow him on Strava, whether or not it's okay to post your coach's programming on your socials, where Fraser's mind goes during an Ironman, the reason he carries out complex long division during a race, his somewhat surprising fear of open water, how many carbs an hour he consumes during a race, the importance of Fraser's wife in helping him with his achievements, and tons more which I've not been able to fit into this intro, but you can check it out in the show notes. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Fraser Minnican. Hey everyone, just a quickie before we get into the conversation. The podcast is always going to be free, so I'm never going to ask you to pay for anything. But if you could do me the kindness of subscribing and maybe leaving a review, that would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Fraser, tell me what's brought you to where you are today?
I guess it has been a long journey. So going way back, so born and raised in Barrow. My dad was a swimmer down at the Barrow Swimming Club for a number of years. He swam at the Olympic trials, can't remember which year it was, but he was the head coach at Barrow for a number of years, which that was kind of my way of getting into sport, getting into swimming. So my older brother Jared, he started swimming first, then I came in, and then my younger sister and brother Clara and Mason, we all swam at Barrow. Swimming was kind of the only sport that I ever did. I think from a young age, I qualified for the national championships from the age of 11, which at that time, coming from a small club like Barrow, was quite a big achievement. There wasn't a lot of swimmers that did it, so for me to kind of do that, it was quite a big achievement, to be honest. Working with my dad for a number of years down at Barrow. So nationals from the age of 11. Swam at the national championships every single year up until the year that I retired in 2018. 2013, when was that? Sorry, not 2013. When I was 13, I won my first national championship title. So yeah, it was a bit of a good year for me. First race of the competition. 400 freestyle. I got bronze. I won the 200 medley, and then got another silver in the 400 medley. So from then on, from the age of 13 up to 23, for every 10 years on the bounce, I managed to get on the podium at the national championships, the summer nationals. Swimming for me was the only thing that I ever really knew. I did a lot of it, probably doing, up to 20 hours a week from the age of 11, which is quite a lot, to say the least. It got to the point where, my dad being the coach, but a number of other coaches down there at the time, we had a bit of a, what they call like a performance squad. So there was a number of us, I think there was about 7 in total one year, that were all going to the national championships, making finals, which for a small club, without fancy facilities, we've only got a 6-lane 25-meter pool. It was quite a big achievement. So yeah, we kind of had this performance squad, and that kind of allowed us to get extra pool time. So it ended up that some of the coaches actually got the keys to the pool so that we could open up early, and go in the pool at 5:30 in the morning. So we'd swim 5:30 till 7:30 in the morning, then same in the evening, 5:30 till 7:30. So yeah, I guess coming back to the question, the main driving factor for me getting into it was my dad. He had a lot of passion for the sport. He was, as I said, head coach down at Barrow for a number of years. He was, at the time, quite high up in the shipyard. So it'd be a case that he'd get me up out of bed when we lived in Ulverston. So often we'd get up at 4:45, drive into Barrow. He'd coach us from 5:30 till about 7:15. Then he'd have to go into work, and he'd stay at work all day. Working at quite a high level in there. Then he'd come straight back to the pool at 5:30, 5:45. He'd then coach the whole swimming club till 7:30 at night, and then he'd finally go home. And then, on a weekend, whether it's driving us to competitions or every Sunday morning driving us up to Trackway Bridge to train up there just to get extra pool time to try and match what some of these bigger clubs just had access to all these facilities. We had to kind of make it work in our own way. So he built a bit of a gym in one of our in the garage, which allowed us to then get all of our gym work in. So at one point we were doing an hour's gym then. At that time we didn't have the pool time at Barrow, so we do an hour in the gym and then I go and swim with the public at Ulverston. So yeah, my dad was pretty instrumental in getting me to the level that I got to. So that was kind of almost like the first stage of my career was swimming at Barrow, up until the age of about 15, 16, before I then kind of moved on to other things.
So you said there about 15 or 16, but didn't you say you were swimming for 10 years or
So no,
up until 23?
Yeah, so at the point where I got to 15, I think it was, obviously at that point I was then looking forward to, what am I going to do after school?
Got you.
So in that final year when I was kind of year 10, year 11, at Ulverston Vic, I started training with the City of Liverpool. So looking back, I don't know how we wangled it, but every Friday afternoon, I used to have double English, and I ended up had an agreement with the school. I didn't have to go to this lesson, so I missed a double English lesson every week. My dad, we get to finish at 12 o'clock, so he'd pick us up, drive me straight down to Liverpool, so I could train in the 50-meter pool down there. So I'd do a session with them guys, and then I'd stay over at one of the swimmers' houses, Anthony Evans and Dave Evans, who lived in Bolton. So we'd drive back to Bolton. I'd stay there for the night, and then drive us back to the pool in the morning. Back at Liverpool, and we do whether it's a land-based session, so in the gym, and then a 2-hour pool session. So that was getting me whatever it was, it's getting me 4 hours of long course training every week with a pretty high quality gym session, and it also allowed me to train with people that were at a higher level than me. So it was pushing me to kind of work with faster people, and also it allowed me to kind of swim with people more my own age, whereas down at Barrow it was at that point, a lot of swimmers tend to kind of stop swimming because it's quite a big stage in life. You're leaving school and kind of going on to different things. So for me, so I'm down at Liverpool, and then from there I got a scholarship to move down to Millfield School down in Somerset, and that was then almost like the next stage of my swimming career from there.
What was life like outside of swimming, like in those early years?
I guess to some people, they probably wasn't much of a life. Like swimming was my life. I did it every morning, every night. When I wasn't doing that, I was studying. I always had aspirations to do an engineering degree, so I knew that I had to get pretty good grades in order to do the course I wanted to do at uni and kind of go into that. So it was it was pretty full on, to be honest. Most weekends, if you're not training, I think when we were at Barrow, it was training Sunday nights. You'd have the whole of Saturday off as your rest day, and then going back to the pool Sunday night. But we'd go up the Lake District. Whether it's mountain biking or walking. The family's always been pretty active, so it'd just be getting out and about, really. Yeah.
Seems like, you've mentioned it already, but your dad's clearly very pivotal. And was your dad an engineer in the yard as well?
He was, yeah. So he was when he retired a couple of years back, but he was a platform delivery director. So he got pretty high up. He started as a draftsman, kind of worked his way to the top. So it wasn't like he was, not really doing much when he was at work. A lot of his life, if it didn't revolve around work, it revolved around his kids and what he was doing. So, like even to this day, he messaged me like, "Oh, if you're going out for a run, like, I'll bring my bike down. I'll cycle with you." So all my long runs that I do, preparing for the Ironmans, he's pedaling around, handing me drinks and gels and that because it's what he enjoys doing.
Yeah.
Me brother, younger brother, does a lot of rock climbing. So when he was doing competitions, my dad would be driving out to Sheffield just to watch him and support him. So
Mm.
yeah, he supports all of us, and that's just what he enjoys doing.
What about there's uh, there's an image that's portrayed, or maybe two different images that's portrayed of like parents who get the children into sport, and who were also good at sport. On the one hand, you've got like the tyrant who's like constantly cracking the whip, and then you've got the other on the other side, which is like just supportive, always there. Where does your dad fall on that spectrum?
Uh, I've I've never felt forced to do what I did. Uh,
Mm.
so my older brother, he stopped swimming probably at the age of about 13 because he wanted to go into cycling. So like my dad was like, yeah, like do what you want. So then he was then also supporting him doing his cycling while he was also supporting the other three of us doing our swimming.
Mm.
Uh, my brother ended up cycling then. I think he did a bit of fishing and into rowing, and he got on the GB like talent program for rowing when he was at uni. So he was, no matter what we did, he was happy with what we do. Uh, and yeah, even if it's, you could probably go into anything, competitive knitting, and he'd probably come and support us doing that. He's just that kind of person. But no, he's never like, if I said, "Oh, don't want to go swimming today," he's like, "Right, fair enough, we won't go then." But then he'd still go down himself because he was coaching everyone else anyway. So,
Mm.
uh, so yeah, it was never like, like you have to go because I'm going. It's like, if you don't want to come, don't come
It
then.
was just what you did. It was what the family did, right?
Yeah, yeah. Which
What
is weird because
about
my mum doesn't really swim. She can swim, but she doesn't never really swam. Uh, it was always my dad. But then my mum was always, helping out the local competition. She would be helping out on poolside, whether it's organising all the kids for the different races or whatnot. She was always getting involved in her own way.
Mm. Yeah, man. Like for some reason, it just popped into my. Have you ever watched the Tony Hawk film documentary?
I can't say I have no.
Yeah, it just popped into my head then, and it sort of it was exactly kind of that dynamic. So like the dad was like really into it, and then the mum was like coming down and helping and stuff. And I imagine that's a really positive, supportive environment to find yourself in, and there's no wonder why you're all doing so well at sport with that sort of framework.
Yeah,
Did did you did you enjoy it?
yeah, I absolutely loved it. Uh, it it's weird because when I got to the end of my swimming career when I retired in 2018, I I got to the point where I was enjoying the training more than I was the competition side of it, and it was, yeah, I was at the point where I was, you get to that age and you're not making those big jumps anymore. Like you have to. It's just like marginal gains at that point. So you're working for 12 months to maybe knock half a second off, and it got to a point where I don't want to say I was dreading racing, but I just wasn't enjoying it. Whereas the training, I'm quite a structured person. I like knowing exactly what I'm going to be doing. Uh, so for me, I absolutely love just like this is what I do, and I've always enjoyed that. Just getting up, getting my stuff done, going to school or whatever it is, going back and doing a bit more, and then yeah, rinse and repeat. I think I'm quite a simple person, to be honest. In terms of I don't really need much to make me happy.
Well, I think there's freedom in like kind of just having it set in front of you of what you're going to do each day, isn't there? Like,
Yeah,
I get up, I train, I go to work, whatever it may be. And it's not uncommon for, especially people who are athletic or high achievers, to have a rest day or some time off and be like, what the fuck am I going to do?
yeah.
It's almost easier to do the training, isn't it?
Yeah.
What so how so when you retired from swimming, you were how was that at 23?
Yeah, let me think. So I went so after Millfield, so I was there for 2 years. At that point, I was on the like the GB funding program. So I was a funded athlete. I say funded. I think I got like $3,000 or something, which for that year would cover competitions and travel and whatever it was. I mean, I think the level of it now, it starts a hell of a lot more than that. So you can, it's not a sport where you can make a living, put it that way. So for me, I was then going off to uni at the point where I was like almost like on the verge of making the British team. So for me, it was like, do I then go all in, go for swimming, and try and make the Olympics, which was always kind of the dream. So I looked at going to Loughborough University because one of they called it ITCs, intensive training centres. That was one of the 5 at the time. So I went there. My older brother was at Loughborough anyway, so I knew a bit about it. I'd been there a few times and quite like the facilities there. So I went there, and I remember I had what they called a lifestyle performance coach at the time through this like funding program. And I said, I want to do aeronautical engineering and go in the ITC. And they literally sat me down and printed out the timetable for the swimming, timetable for the lectures, and were like, these two don't mix. Here's a list of degrees that you can do. And I was like, no, that's not going to work. I want to do this degree. And then at that point, there was a coach who used to coach at Loughborough, Ian Armiger, who I got on quite well with. He was coming back to run the university squad as opposed to like the British team one. So I said, I'll go in the university squad. And I think about a week or two later, I got a letter from whoever it was in British Swimming saying I've been dropped off the funding programme because I wasn't 100% committed to the sport. So I don't want to say I had a black mark against my name. It never felt like that, but in my head, I always thought that was the case. But I made the choice because I've worked hard to do this degree that I want to do, and I also want to continue swimming at a relatively high level. So that was a choice that I made. So yeah, I was at Loughborough. I was on the scholarship program, so I was kind of a funded athlete through the university, which allowed me to stretch my 3-year degree over 5 years. So I did the first year was a full year, and then the second and third year were split over 2 years each, which allowed me to kind of focus more on the two while still doing a pretty demanding course. So yeah, I was there for 5 years. In my final year, obviously applying for jobs and everything, it started getting a bit more stressful. So at that point, 2018, I'd swam in the April out in Sweden, and I'd put in a pretty good time in the 400 medley. And I think I'd met the qualifying like standard to go to the European Championships or something that year. So my coach at the time, he was pretty confident that I'd get selected for this team. Ended up not getting selected. So for me at that point, I kind of knew that to make that next step to say the Olympic team or the World Championships, there's the drop that I'd have to make in terms of the time that I'd have to swim. For me, I just wasn't willing to make that commitment. It would have meant, either not finishing my degree or something and just solely focusing on doing the swimming. So for me at that point, I just thought, I think like now's the right time to kind of stop doing it. So we had a duel in the pool meet with some University of Toronto. They came over and we did like this race against them in the pool. And then the week after, I think we had the Bucks short course. So I swam the Bucks short course for the team, and then I think I more or less the Monday, the day after, I then went and spoke to the coach, Andy Manley, and said, "Yeah, it's I'm not going to carry on."
Wow. It seems like quite a surprising choice, I think, for myself and maybe anyone listening, that where you prioritize the degree over the swimming. Yeah, why? I suppose like anyone would think like you would go for the sport um over the academic stuff. What was it about the degree that was so important?
I don't think it was the degree per se. I think it's just, you know, maybe it was like, subconsciously, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. Like if I go all out, try and make the Olympic team, which, I know a lot of swimmers who, didn't even pass any of the GCSEs, so they could focus on the swimming. And then, 5 years down the line, they get an injury and then they're out and they've got, no qualifications. They've not, made it in a sport that's not got much money anyway. So maybe there was a bit of a fear of that, almost like a fear of failure, I suppose. But it was also like, even like from that, like doing all the GCSEs, like getting the good grades there and then A levels and like carrying through, like it was like I've put a lot of work in to do this as well. Like although I've put a lot of work in to do the swimming, like everyone was saying, you can always go back and finish your degree and all this lot, but it's like, but the amount of time and effort I put into swimming, I'd also put into getting me to the point, and it wasn't easy. Like balancing the two things has never been easy, and I was always like trying to find that balance, I guess, like between the two. And so for me to kind of give something up that I'd worked hard to maintain, it just didn't feel right. So yeah, it was a case of, I'll do both to the best of my ability, which is currently, I guess, the situation I'm in now. With the Ironman, everyone's asking me, "Oh, you're going to, take your pro license and all this lot?" And it's like, well, I've got a good career that I've worked pretty hard for. I enjoy what I'm doing. Like, I know I'm not going to be as competitive if I were to turn pro because, I'm not willing to give up what I'm doing. So for me, I just enjoy doing both things at once. If I want to do something full time and, quit my job and start doing full time triathlon, I might not enjoy it. And it's, yeah, I guess for me, I quite enjoy, finding that balance. Again, it's probably the only thing that I know because it's the only thing that I've ever done. I've never gone all out in one aspect, so I guess it's more comfortable for me to just do both of them, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense. Yeah, it's so true though, isn't it? Like, I think how you frame anything in life, as soon as it becomes like the one thing or your full-time job or something that you have to do, it does have a totally different sort of flavor to it. So yeah, no, I totally respect like that approach. Just so interesting because I think it just goes against the grain of what anyone would expect, and even like the sort of the classic trope that you would I don't know. If you were watching a film about an athlete going through school and stuff, it would be, oh, he's not doing enough of the academic stuff, and quite literally, you end up doing the opposite to that, which is just it's just really interesting. That point where you decided to retire, what did that feel like?
I think so. It was weird. So I raced like I said, out in Sweden in the April. And for me, for the 400 medley, my time was always around 4:20. I'd been sat on that for about 3 or 4 years, and I was going into Sweden just thinking like this is the year I'm going to get under 4:20. And I more or less told myself like, as soon as I do it, I'm done, because I was thinking like, I might go 4:19.8, like just scrape under. But I ended up going 4:17.1, which, dropping 3 seconds for me was absolutely huge. And then the other two events that I swam out there, I dropped a lot of time as well. So it kind of threw me off. I was thinking I'll just scrape it. That'll be me done. I can achieve that, then I can retire. But I did that, and then like I was then second guessing it, like, oh, like maybe there's more to give. So from then until the national champs in July, I just I just had like no motivation to train, because I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve, and then I was almost like forced myself to carry on because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I got raced at the summer nationals, and again I had a pretty good summer national. I think I got 3 or 4 medals or something. And then at that point I kind of knew that I kind of knew that I was done, just because I just didn't have the fire for it anymore, to be honest. But then I went back to uni in my last year, and I thought I'll give it a little go and see how it works out. I quite like doing the books, the British University Championships. It's always a good event to be in short course as well. It's just a bit more fun. So that's normally in November, and I told myself, I'll do that and then retire after that, just so I could, because it's like a team event. You can only have two swimmers per event, and at the time I was the strongest swimmer in the 400 medley, so it kind of made sense for me to like help the team out and do that, which is what I ended up doing. But yeah, like coming back to my dad, I remember when I told him that I was going to retire. Like, I think I'd bigged it up that much. It did feel like I was going to disappoint him, like telling him. We were coming back. We were coming back for a funeral actually from one of the Cumbria coaches. So we were a bit like upset anyway. We're in the car coming back down the M6, and I just said, "Oh look, I think I'm going to retire." I was absolutely dreading it. And yeah, like as soon as I said it, he was like yeah, cool. Like he I, he wasn't by any means like emotionless, but I think he knew that I was done. Like just from seeing how I was between Sweden and then the summer nationals and all that lot. So I think he already knew, to be honest. But yeah, I'd bigged it up to myself that it was a big thing telling him, but in reality, it really wasn't. So I think once I told him, this was obviously before I retired. I think it was like a week or two before, uh, but yeah, I just did that, and it was a relief. Probably coming back to the question, uh, yeah, it was a relief. Just I think I probably did an Instagram post about it, but I think I was just the one thing I was looking forward to, like no more early mornings, not having to get up
Seen that.
not having to get up at 5 in the morning.
How old are you at this point?
29.
29, right? Okay. So then, what do you do?
Yeah, so yeah, I'd met me now wife at uni. She was in the swim team, so yeah, first week of freshers, she snapped me up, and I'd somehow I kind of always knew that I wanted to move back to Barrow. I think the original plan was to go in the RAF. I started the process for all that, but got to the end of uni, it just felt like I'd be going back to square one, starting all the basic training and doing all that. So I ended up dropping out of the process and then started applying for jobs. Yeah, that was why I did aeronautical engineering, so I was going to the RAF actually.
Right.
But yeah, me wife, she was working at Decathlon on the graduate scheme there. She studied chemistry, and then I just thought, why don't you apply for obviously the shipyard up here? So she did that. She got a job, so it then just made sense for me to move back up. So graduated 2019, accepted a job up here for starting January 2020. So yeah, moved back up, and I think it was Christmas 2019. Yeah, it was Boxing Day. I was just like, I think I'd always seen the World Championships in Kona and just thought, oh, that looks pretty cool. I always knew I was going to do something after swimming. I just hadn't quite decided what that was. I've always been into cycling. You know, my dad had us. We were always going around the lakes, mountain biking, and never really did running. I did a bit of running at school just because I was, you know, fit from doing all the swimming and that. So I did a bit of cross country, but never really ran. And then, yeah, Boxing Day, I was like, screw it, let's just do an Ironman. So I
Had
entered it.
you even done a triathlon before this point?
So we used to do little local ones up at Trackwet Bridge,
Right.
and never trained for them. Kind of just rocked up and did
Yeah.
them, and I think I won them. But yeah, I was So yeah, actually no. So yeah, we did do a triathlon in 2019. Actually, I forget about that. We did one up in Ullswater,
Mm-hmm.
and that was. I think I'd graduated. We went around America for 5 weeks. Came back and did this triathlon, and like, you know, borrowed a bike and hired a wetsuit and did all that. And I think I won it by a few minutes. It was a what will it be, an Olympic distance one. I ended up winning it and thought, actually, I'm not too bad at this kind of thing. So then I think that then
Just
planted the seed.
just real quickly, so if anyone's listening who doesn't know what an Ironman or a triathlon is, would you be able to
Yep.
just explain those distances and stuff?
Yeah. So I guess I now do what they call full distance triathlon. So yeah, I guess it's more well known as an Ironman because that is essentially the
That's the
brand
brand, is it? Yeah.
that created the Ironman distance race, the full distance triathlon, which is 2.4 mile swim, 3.8k, and then you've got 112-mile bike, 180k, and then a marathon, so 26 mile and 42k. So yeah, and then yeah, doing that first Olympic distance, that was 1500 swim, 40k bike, and then a 10k run. So for me, it was when I was at Loughborough. The Loughborough triathletes were always in, so you used to see all like you know, quite a few like high level triathletes training. It's bad looking back because we used to, like, you know, laugh and joke about how they used to swim in that. Watching triathletes dive in, like that's how you can, watching someone dive is how you can tell if they've swam before. But so I got into triathlon, did that one in the summer, and I think for me, I knew it wasn't not a challenge, but I think because I did a lot better than I expected, I then thought I need to like kind of push myself. You know, from a young age, I've always been, you know, pushing myself like every single day, and, you know, trying to just do the best that I can do. So
And
the
how
next lot,
trained were you at that point? Were you doing much? Were you just keeping yourself fairly fit? Like what level
yeah,
of fitness?
I was probably it was probably the least fit I've ever been,
Yeah.
but I was still swimming in the public 2 or 3 times a week, you know, a couple of hours a week in the pool. I'd then started running just because my wife was she was training for marathons and that, so I was just going out for runs with her, and then again cycling. I think I bought a road bike, like my first proper road bike in my final year of uni, and was, you know, just going out for a couple of hours kind of thing. So yeah, I wasn't training structured training as I am now, but yeah, I was doing a bit. I guess compared to the average person, I was probably doing a bit.
Mm. Mm. But compared to your swimming days, probably like a big off season.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. Yeah, something like my big swimming weeks. You know, I think my biggest week was like 36 hours or something, including gym and pre-pool and post-pool. And although yeah, swim session might be 2 hours, but you're in there for about 3.5, 4 hours because you get there 45 minutes early and do all your pre-pool, your activation stuff. You might do a bit of a circuit before you get in, and then afterwards you're stretching for 35, 40 minutes, whatever it is. So yeah, it very quickly becomes a full-time job. Like,
Yeah.
that's why when I was at uni, doing engineering degree and also try to train 30 plus hours a week, it's like trying to do a degree alongside a full-time job.
Mm.
So yeah, having that flexibility to stretch my degree over the 2 years, yeah, I couldn't have done it without that.
Mm. So, when was your first Ironman?
Uh,
Did you say
so
you signed up in Christmas 2019?
2019, so it was meant to be July 2020,
COVID, right?
COVID.
Okay.
So the idea was, yeah, the idea was to do Bolton, and then so yeah, sign up for Ironman Bolton, and then qualify for the World Championships in Kona, which Bolton didn't go ahead for obvious reasons. So it wasn't until the year after. But the day that I was meant to do Bolton, I did a swim bike challenge called the Frog Witten. So it had only been done once before by a lad called Ben Dowman he's from Kendal. So it's essentially the Fred Witten cycle route. You miss off about 10 mile. So I think it's about 98 mile on the bike around the Fred Witten. And then you add in 6 miles of swimming through Ullswater, Derwent, Buttermere and Rydal. So yeah, so I think Ben did about 10.5 hours, and at that point I was still training as if I was doing an Ironman because with COVID, like we didn't really know if it was going ahead or it wasn't, and
Mm.
Ironman were being what they're normally like with not responding to emails and that. So yeah, I ended up doing this thing, the Frog Witten. I raised a bit of money for charity. Well, my younger cousin a few years back had a brain tumor. So I was raising money for the charity that was like helping support the family through that. Uh, so that was a bit of a nice thing to do. So I kind of used my fitness from what I was training for the Ironman, and then put it into this swim bike thing,
Mm.
and did that. I think it was about 8 hours, 8.5 hours it was. So that was a pretty cool event too, the Frog Witten, yeah. And then yeah, first Ironman then was Ironman Bolton in 2021.
2021. So this coming season will be your fourth season. Is that right? Is that fourth or fifth?
I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, fourth. Yeah. Oh no, the coming
Yeah.
season will be my fifth. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
So
finished
you've
my
done
fourth.
four.
Yeah.
And what? How many races have you done like each year?
Uh, so typically 3 races. For me personally, I think that's the most I can manage. With working
Mm.
full time, uh, with the amount of training and the different build cycles and tapering and all that lot. I think that's for me that's probably the most that I could manage. You're looking at some of the guys and they're racing every other weekend, which not only costs a hell of a lot of money, like
Mm.
it's a lot harder on the body to do that. And it's fine if you don't work, you can just put your feet up and recover.
Yeah.
But you know, for most people, it's not doable because you just can't get that recovery time in. Like even just between your training sessions. So yeah, 2021, Bolton. So I was leading the race at that point. I was leading it for a fair bit. Uh, yeah, I won my age group that and qualified for Kona. So at that point, me and Lauren were getting married in the September. So we were then meant to be going out to Kona for our honeymoon straight after the wedding. So at that point, it kind of lined up perfectly that I can do the Ironman World Champs while I'm on my honeymoon.
Amazing. Kona's Hawaii, right?
Yes, yeah. But for whatever reason, Hawaii were not letting people in because of COVID. So the World Champs then got delayed to 2022. So I deferred my entry to 2022. So instead of that, I did Outlaw X, which was where was it? Down near Nottingham, I think. So I did that. So first proper half distance I did. I had done one back in the May, but the bike was cancelled because of a traffic collision, so the race got cancelled in the end. But first half distance, and I think I won that and broke the course record. So it kind of showed that I could do not only the full, like, longer, like, more endurance stuff, but I could also, like, pick it up and do some of the shorter stuff. So yeah, I did kind of 3 races that year. I went to my second season, 2022. I'd already qualified for Kona, so my whole year was just kind of gearing up for Kona. I was kind of going out there thinking that, I'm gonna win the age group race and get me professional license and go pro and do all this, and that was kind of, at that point, that was the dream. And it almost felt like all the stars were aligning to do that. But yeah, in the lead up to that, it was all gearing up for that. I did the Lakesman half as a bit of a preparation thing for that. That was in the June, so I think I won that. Got the course record there for that race, which was pretty good. And then went out to Kona, all geared up to win it. There was me wife. She ended up doing Ironman Finland in the August, 6 weeks before Kona. She wasn't actually going to come out to Kona because it was too bloody expensive. But she ended up qualifying at Finland. So at the presentation ceremony, I was like jabbing her in the back, like, "Oh, you can't not take it. Like, we're already going out there. We'll find a way to make it work," kind of thing. So in the end, she ended up taking the spot and meant they were both racing the World Champs in Kona, which we then kind of allowed us to do our honeymoon out there, which was pretty special. And then Grant Johnson, lad that I trained with as well, he ended up qualifying for Ironman Bolton in 2022. So there's 3 of us from Barrow going out to Hawaii, which was pretty special.
That's awesome. Representing.
Yeah.
So just qualifying. So obviously, to enter a regular Ironman, do you need to qualify for anything, or can anyone do that?
As long as you're willing to pay the entry fee, it's.
How much is it?
Yeah, it depends.
Right.
I personally think it takes the piss of it. What is it? I think you're paying probably five or 600 quid to do a full distance. Yeah, I think Kona, they triple that. I think it was about 1,500. So anyone can enter a normal race, and then they have the World Championships. So each year they'll have a half distance or 70.3, which is exactly half the distance of a full distance. So that's 1,900 meter swim, 90k on the bike, and then a half marathon run. So they have a series of those races across the year where you can qualify for the 70.3 World Championships. And then they also have, all across the world, full distance Ironman races where you can then qualify for the full distance World Championships. So traditionally, the full distance have always been held in Hawaii. That was where the original Ironman started. It was originally on Honolulu, on that island, but I think because it's quite a bit busier over there, they then moved it to the big island on Kona. So every year it's been there, and then it's since COVID they've kind of changed that. So we raced out in 2022 on the Big Island. Because there was that many people because of COVID, they ended up doing it over 2 days. So I don't know how they decided, but I raced on the first day with Lauren and a lot of the female categories, whereas like Grant and all the faster male categories raced on the Saturday, 2 days after.
Right.
So yeah, and anyone can do a normal one then, providing you qualify for the World Championships, which the process is. Yeah, not a lot of people agree with it, but like they've kind of got to draw the line somewhere. So it goes off a percentage of. There's a certain number of spots. So say like Bolton, for example, there's 40 slots available, and then they divvy them up between the number of finishers in each individual age group. So the male 35 to 39, for example, that might have a load of people entering it and completing it. So that will typically get more slots.
Yeah.
Whereas, the women's 80 to 84, there might only be one person doing it, but they'll still give one slot because there'll be at least one slot for each age group, providing that someone finishes. So when you look at it like that, you've got one person and one slot. So providing you finish, you're then going to get the slot to go. Whereas, the male 35, 39, you might have 400 people doing it and only 2 slots. So if you get 2, really quick people, it's then arguably more difficult. But, there's like since the last couple of years, they've kind of made it equal. So there's the same number of slots, men and women, which I think is fair enough. But yeah. So you could qualify for both the full and the half distance through doing that.
All right, cool. So let's talk about this last season that's just been. So
Yep.
what off season's like November to February?
Well, I've just started training again this week. Just started building back up, getting moving again.
So pre-season, sort of November.
Yeah. So I've just finished the 2024 season. Sorry, did you want to talk about the season just gone or one coming up?
Yeah, sorry, season just gone. Yeah, so obviously your last race was Portugal. And you is it Portuguese champion? How do you term it?
I don't know. Ironman Portugal champion.
Ironman Portugal champion.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. So, what is it about this season that meant that you were able to achieve something like that?
It's a very good question. Let's have a think. So I know in terms of like my workload through my job, this year's been a lot more full on. So my training this year's been a lot more hit and miss. This time last year I was like all over the spot with work, and I didn't do like a full week's training for probably 10 or 11 weeks. So I guess that probably helped because I wasn't going full on too early in the season. I was probably like building into it a lot more slowly than I normally would. So yeah, first race of the season out in Mallorca half. I ended up, there was a professional race and I won the age group race out there. So going into that first race of the season, it's always a bit like, it always kind of feels like a lottery. It definitely wasn't swimming. I never really expect too much. So to come out and win that, so to come out and win that was a bit of a surprise. So that point, I came first, and Grant, the other lad from Barrow, he came second. So that was pretty cool. 2 lads from Barrow on top of the podium. But yeah, so I did that, and I managed to get a slot 2 challenger off, which is like a lottery entry. You've got to get in the ballot, and they sell out within like 10 seconds or whatever. So managed to get that last July for this year. So I went out there, not with any real expectations again, just kind of wanted to go out and have fun with it. So I went out there and again I was leading the race for a fair whack, and then just towards the end I was like the last few hills on the run started, biting at me, and I won my age group. I came third overall, 8:09, which the first time I was on the faster course, and at that point it was I broke the British record for non-professionals, which has since been broken by the lad who I took it off. He went just
Right.
under 8 hours in Copenhagen about 2 weeks later. So that, like, for me, that was like, I'd kind of like in the back of my mind thought, oh, I think 8:10, 8:15 is doable, but I never really like truly believed that. So to kind of do that, I think I ran like a 2:49 marathon. I was aiming to just get under 3 hours. Like that's almost like the benchmark. Like if you go under 3 hours, like you kind of moving. And I was like just under 2:50, and yeah, it was absolutely awesome. So yeah, that was a huge result for me, which was a bit unexpected. And then similar to that final year of my swimming career, I kind of like lost that motivation to carry on. I definitely, speaking to my coach, and some days I just couldn't be bothered getting out the door and training, because I'd built up that much to Roth, and then achieved more than what I wanted to achieve. And it was kind of like, oh, I really want to, keep pushing for the rest of the season. And I originally I'd entered Portugal to qualify for the World Championships for 2025, which are held in Nice in France again, which I'd raced that last year and had a few issues, had a few health issues in that. So I didn't, like, towards the end, I didn't really have like as much of an interest of going back to Nice and racing. So that was then adding to the fact that I didn't have the motivation to train. I was like, well, do I even really want to race Portugal? Which I, Grant, who I train with, and my coach also coaches him. I was like feeling guilty because he's had like stress fractures in his hip, and he's not been able to run for the best part of the year, like since Mallorca and that. And I'm sat there morning like, oh, I can't be asked to train. And he can't physically train because he's in that much pain. Because he'd entered Portugal as well, so he was unsure about racing it for health reasons, and I was like, I just can't be. Not that I can't be bothered, but I was just like, I just can't. I couldn't like bring my mind to it.
I think it's there's such a huge stimulus, isn't it? And so I do high rocks, so obviously it's not anywhere near as big an event in terms of duration and stress on the body. And it's like, what you were saying before about how many races you do in a year, like 3's about the maximum, and it's that thing of just like peaking over and over again, isn't it? And
Yeah,
I think it's, you've got so many things going on, like the dopamine, and then you fall into this trough afterwards. And I think that's half of it. Is it a huge part of it is that peaking at the right times. That's like the art form, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Because if
Like
you,
me coach, he calls that the Ironman blues. Like as soon as you finish it, it's like, oh, I'm so glad to be done with it. And then within a few days, you're almost like craving it again. And
yeah,
like, so like, yeah, this last year, I'd kind of like written off the idea of going pro just because I thought, I just can't be bothered with it. Like looking at the level of the pros now, like what they're doing is just like unheard of. Like the times that they're running after swimming and biking at the speeds that they do. Like if I wanted to be competitive at that level, I probably would have to quit my job and then take 2 or 3 years to train to prepare to try and put in a performance like that.
So what's the difference with pro? Like, yeah, how's that work?
So it's like it's the same race, but it's also a different race. So they typically, so the corner, for instance, they always go off first. They're the first ones to go because then they've got no one in front of them on the road.
So
So
it'd
when I
literally be
did,
called like Iron Man Pro.
it's still
But
called Iron Man
right.
Bolton,
It's
but they'll
just the
just have
pro
like
division.
they'll have a pro category in it. So if you look at the
Right.
results, you'll have the pro category, and then you'll have
Yeah.
the age group categories. So Portugal for me was the first race like that I'd done where they didn't have a pro wave. So it meant that I actually, although I've won other races, I've never technically won it because there's always been the professionals that have come ahead
Got
of
you.
me. So Portugal was the first time I actually crossed the finish line as the first person to finish that distance. So that was, yeah, that was pretty epic, to be honest, because I got the finish line tip because I was the first person to actually finish the distance. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, like the way the pros race, it's a completely different dynamic. Like,
Mm.
for me, I coming from that swimming background, like I'll swim off the front of all the age group swimmers, and then I'm pretty handy on the bike as well, so I'll cycle around on my own for 4.5 hours and not see anyone, and then on the run I'm just like hoping that no one catches me, and I'm just trying to build up enough of a lead throughout the swim and the bike that I can then like maintain that on the run. Whereas the pros, if I was racing the pro way, for example, I'd be up there with the fastest pro swimmers, so I could swim in
Mm.
a little group, probably save a bit of energy because I can be sat on people's feet working together, and then getting out on the bike. Although you're not allowed to draft by the rules, it's a non-drafting race. So
Okay.
Olympic distance, for example, if you watch it on the telly, they'll all come out of the swim together, cycle around in a little group, and then providing you make that front group, normally it's the fastest 10k runner at the end that'll
Mm.
win the race. Which for me was one of the reasons why I wasn't that bothered about doing that distance, because I'm never going to be a sub 30-minute 10k runner. So I'd always just be pulling everyone around on the swim, working in the group on the bike, and then getting your teeth kicked in on the run. Whereas in the Ironman distance, if I were to, I could swim with the group and then work with the group, albeit keeping your 12 meters apart from each other and not getting the drafting penalties, and then it's just like who can run the marathon fastest. I think I probably wouldn't be that far off if I managed to sit in a decent group on the bike and save my legs. In theory, I could almost run with the top guys. Not
Mm.
That's probably bullshit. That I couldn't run with the top guys. Like they're running like two bloody 30 marathons now off the 4 hours on the bike and that, which it is ridiculous. Like
What was it?
yeah,
Was it 407 a kilometer you ran at Portugal? Was it with us all?
just under 403. So I think Portugal was actually quicker than Roth, even though
Yeah.
I think Roth was like a couple hundred meters short. So I just dipped under 250, but I think Portugal was actually quicker.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, they're running like whatever it is, 340s
Mm.
for a marathon, which in itself, like running a 230 marathon, like
Yes.
that's shifting. But then
Yeah.
doing that after swimming 2.5 mile in the sea and then biking 112 mile, it's what like here to probably Knutsford Services or something. It's ridiculous. But then
Yeah.
like they're like they've got all the best technology, all nutritionalists, like
Mm.
they're doing all. It's all gone very, even since I've started, it's gone a lot more scientific. Doing all your blood lactate testing, that seems to be the big craze at the
Mm.
moment, which is weird because we did a lot of that when we were swimming.
Oh,
Whereas I
did
think,
you?
yeah, last few years we did a lot of more like almost like science-based training.
Like finding
Uh,
out your lactate threshold and
yeah, doing all that VO2 max and all that kind of stuff. Uh, Whereas going into triathlon, it almost felt like old school. It was just like, oh, put more miles and you go quicker kind of thing.
mm.
Uh, but yeah, the last few years has just gone pretty crazy.
When you're racing, Where's your mind at when you're racing?
I guess it depends where I'm racing. Portugal, yeah. So Portugal, I went into it even like the week before. I wasn't that sure if I was wanting to actually race or not. But Lauren had said, like, we booked everything. We might as well go out there for just have a holiday, like, if nothing less. But then in the end, I was like, oh, if I go there, I'm going to want to do the race. I might as well do the race and just do it. So I went into it just probably a lot more relaxed than I would normally. Normally like 2 or 3 weeks before, I'll start trying to eat a bit healthier. Cut out all like sugary stuff that I don't really need to be eating, and try and lose even if it's a kilo, like carrying a kilo around for a marathon. Like if you can get rid of it, you might as well. But yeah, like the week before, I was still pigging out on donuts and whatever else, and the night or two before the race, like the Airbnb had given us a bottle of wine, so me and Grant had the bottle of wine and that, which like normally I'd never do. I'd be like pretty strict on like, no, I've come here to race and I'm gonna do it. So I think going into Portugal, I was just so much more relaxed. And yeah, the swim, like, what am I thinking in the swim? Like, well, I've got a habit of swimming the wrong way in the swim, so for me it's like, yeah, I'm always thinking like, am I going the right way? Like, I probably sight. I probably don't sight enough. I tend to do like 8 or 10 strokes with my head down before I sight. I swim with my eyes shut. I don't like open water swimming. Like, I absolutely detest it. But it's a means to an end. I kind of have to do it to do what I do. So yeah, the swim, I kind of just like eyes shut, hoping it'll, nothing will come out of the water and bite me or whatever it is. And yeah, just thinking, make sure I'm going the right way, get round. Obviously, I have my race plan and that. First 400 meters or so, put in a little bit of a dig, try and get any stragglers off my feet, and then just settle into rhythm and swim on my own. Just focus on breathing and me stroke and that. And yeah, get round, get to the swim. The last few hundred meters of the swim, it's then like, I need to start planning my transition, like in my head, like trying to remember where the bag is and that. Then remembering where your bike is, where it's racked up, and it's you kind of then just like thinking ahead, like what have I got coming up? And yeah, once you're out on the bike, it's it's almost like, for me, it's straight onto nutrition. Like, you've just done close to an hour, whatever it is, 46 or 7 minutes swimming, relatively hard effort, like salt water, get some water down, like get hydrated. I probably swallowed a lot of salt, and then it's like start getting the energy back in. Whether it's through solid food or straight on the liquids in my bottles and that. And then once I've done a bit of that for 15, 20 minutes, Portugal was different because they had the 70.3 race as well. So there was a lot of, I always make my way through the tail end of that race. So for the first lap of the Ironman, I was catching up and overtaking all of them. So I guess I was shouting and probably swearing a lot at people who were not following the rules, whether they were like cycling in groups and drafting off each other, or the rule is you're meant to keep right, because if you don't, obviously in Portugal they drive on the right hand side, so you stay to the right of the lane so that the faster people can come through on the left. But people just, it's like wacky races, like swerving in and out, screaming at people, and there's this whole rule about you're not allowed to cross the centre line because of things that have happened in the past. So I was then like, oh crap, I can't cross the centre line because if someone catches me, I'm going to get disqualified because it's a rule. But and I was like, well, they didn't brief it out in the race briefing. Does that mean it's not a rule anymore? So a lot of it's just like it's almost like trying to get your head straight. Like, like when there's a lot of things going on like that, because like there's a few times where I nearly just like ploughed straight into the back of someone because they like just pull out, not even looking where they're going. Yeah, the etiquette is pretty shoddy. And then once I was on the second lap, it was a bit quieter. I mean, I was then kind of making my way, like lapping the cyclists who were doing the full distance, but it was certainly a lot quieter. So it's more a case of Portugal, for example. There was first 20k, you're kind of up a big hill, down a big hill, and it was just flat out and back for whatever it is, 40 mile. So it's thinking going up the hill, like I don't want to overcook it, go too hard, but then it's like, once you get to the top, you've then got 20-25 minutes of downhill, so you can actually recover. So it's you probably want to push a bit harder going up the hill. So it's like watching your power on your head unit on your little bike computer just to make sure that you're not overcooking it. But then because you're working harder, you then need to fuel a bit more to kind of compensate for that. And then once on the downhill, it's trying to make sure that you're not doing anything stupid that can cause you to crash. Then the out and back, it was for me, it wasn't dreadful, but it was pretty dreadful because it just felt like it was going on for ages. And like I got in it's a bad habit, like when you watch the distance tick up, because when you start like watching the clock, it just feels like it's going on for even longer.
Yeah.
So the first lap, the first bit of the out and back, because I hadn't like sighted that bit of the course. I felt pretty miserable on that. I just felt bored, to be honest.
So is this the run?
No, this is the bike still.
Oh, still on the bike. Sorry, yeah.
Still on the bike, yeah. So it sounds bad, but I was a bit bored. But then the second lap, Lauren had shouted. It was like, "Oh, you got a 8-minute lead or something." So at that point, I knew that like no one was catching me, so I almost felt like I could relax a bit more and just focus on, again, like nutrition, just making sure I'm doing everything right so that when I get off the bike for the run, I'm not gonna blow up because I'm not taking enough carbs or anything. And coming into the run, again, I think I had about an 8-minute lead or something. So straight away, just making sure that you're taking enough nutrition on the run. The run was just like, it was three 14k laps, just like big out and backs along the coast. Which once you get out of the little town, it was like, there wasn't really anyone there, so it was quite a quiet place to be. I had the lead cyclist riding with us, but he was that far ahead. Like sometimes they'll like ride with you and chat with you, but this guy wasn't that bothered. So just running on my own. And I think if you're comfortable with like just being in your own head, like I think it's not too bad. For me, like I've done years and years of swimming, staring at a black line on the floor. I'm quite comfortable doing that. One of my favourite sessions was, I used to love doing it, 5k fins, paddles and snorkel. So you just get in and do 5k straight and not even like lift your head up once, just stare at the floor for whatever it is, an hour straight. I used to love doing that just because I think I like just like knowing like this is all I've got to do, 5k, then I'm done. Nice little recovery session. So for me, I quite like just being in my own thoughts. So on the run, it's once you've got all your nutrition, it's like it's just trying to figure out what you need to be doing and not overcooking it. Am I pushing too hard? Portugal was a bit up and down on the course, so it's, you don't want to overdo it on the hills again, and because running you can't really make up as much time going down the hill. And then something I do, I guess it's probably the inner engineer in me. I quite like breaking down the distance as a way to keep my mind like busy. I'll break down the distance, whether it's 10k out of 42, and I'll convert it into a fraction. Then I'll try and like work out what it is in to a certain number, like significant figures, which is really like nerdy, but for me it's just something that keeps my mind occupied. So each kilometer I'll then figure it out and try and calculate in different ways. And
So
are
you calculating like your pacing, or what is the calculation you're making?
just how much of the distance have I completed and what have I got left. So just like some pretty boring long division, really. Just just because it keeps me occupied.
Yeah.
I probably should be thinking like, shit, I do I need to start pushing? But for me, it's dividing 19 by 42, like like just because it's. I guess I find it quite interesting in a really really boring way.
It's
But
interesting though, because you said that you like to be sort of in your own head, but in a weird way or a slightly contradicting way, it sounds like you're actually, other than the arithmetic, quite
yeah,
present.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Just like, where do I need to be? Like it's not. It doesn't sound like there's much thought or chatter,
yeah,
which obviously is detrimental most of the time to performance.
yeah. I think it's more when things are going good, it's more like that. I
Mm,
think when I'm suffering, there's probably less long division going on, and it's probably more. So like yeah. So for instance, like Portugal, the lad who was chasing us, he was a quick runner, but like Grant and Lauren were shouting out, "Oh, you're holding time on him." And I think it got to in my head. I was then doing like, "Oh, so if I've got 8 minutes, if I can get to 10k to go, I need to hold, or he'll have to average 30 seconds per kilometer quicker than me in order to catch me." And then like each kilometer, I was then like calculating, and I got to a point where I was like, all I've got to do is keep moving
mm,
at a reasonable pace for him to not catch me. So it was almost like I was like calculating at what point do I know that as long as I just keep moving, I can still win this race. Uh, but yeah, like it's a weird one because like I guess in theory you should be thinking like, oh, I really need to like this next 5 kilometers I'm going to push it and try and make up some time. But for me, it's like I'm already doing the best that I can do. Like my
mm.
if my body's not trained to hold 340 per kilometer, I'm not going to do it on race day. So there's no point me trying to worry about trying to do that. Like I've not trained for a 2:30 marathon. I've trained for roughly what I was doing on the day. So for me that was like in my head I'm thinking there's probably not much more that I can do. I just need to keep doing what I'm doing. So yeah,
Sounds like you're extremely relaxed.
uh, I think I'm quite a relaxed person. Yeah, but
Mm. But in
uh,
that race specifically,
this race I was, yeah. I think probably more so because again I knew how much of a lead that I had, and
mm,
I wasn't like panicking. Uh, I think because I knew I was feeling good, and I knew I wasn't just well, not that I didn't I knew, but it didn't feel like I was deteriorating. Like I was holding the same pace throughout the run. So
mm,
for me, it was like as long as I just keep doing what I'm doing, like I should be fine. Uh, I mean, yeah, there was a point where I did start getting a bit of cramp in my hamstrings, so I took a few salt tabs and carried on again. But apart from that, I was pretty relaxed. But even then, like if he's running 340s, like there's nothing I can do about that. Like
yeah,
if he wants to run a 2:30 marathon, then he's going to do that whether I run a
yeah,
4 hour marathon or not. So for me to worry about him, it's like although you like I am almost worried about him catching me. There's nothing that I can do about it. So for me, it's just a case of just do your own thing.
mm. Yeah, man, so interesting. And take it back to High Rocks just for a moment, but I've done like 2 years doing High Rocks, and my first year in it, I did very well, but I wasn't relaxed.
Yeah,
But I thought that you had to be like David Goggins. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
pushed in 110%, like ramping up that heart rate, just pushing it as hard as you can. It's all about suffering through it, stoicism, all that bollocks.
Yeah.
And then that sort of this season's come round, and then I've really got into this being more present in the exercise, being more relaxed. And also, like, I used to have a lot of mental tricks. So I would have things that I would think about to kind of make me feel a bit more confident, and I'd picture myself training and stuff. And then this year, like, all that bullshit's kind of gone.
Yeah.
And it's just like, sounds so simple, but just be in the race. And like you, and what you said earlier about like your preparation, it's just everything, isn't it? So if
Yeah.
you're at where you're at, aren't you?
Like, I guess, like, my question to that is, do you think social media has an effect on that? Because, like, you see a lot of people, like, people only ever post the good things on social media.
Mm,
Like, in terms of training, like, I don't follow many triathletes.
yeah.
I like, it sounds bad, but because I don't give a shit about what they do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like no one really cares about what I do, and I don't really care what they do. So for them posting, oh, I've done this like really hard session today, like it doesn't affect me, but
Mm,
I get the feeling that a lot of other people kind of buy into that, and then they like force themselves to do something similar, and because then they're posting on social media, more people then do it. Like, I I don't really like social media.
mm-hmm.
Uh, like, I only really, I don't know why I post on it, to be like, in all honesty. Like, my wife said, "Oh, you should probably do a post today." I'm like, I don't really get it, but
Yeah.
it's almost like, I just think it's like people showing off. Yeah, I
Well,
don't
it
get
is
it.
that, isn't it? Like at the end of the day, that's what it's. It's a form of kind of like peacocking. Look at me. Look at what I can do. Um, we've always had it to a certain point, but obviously social media just like makes it go through the roof. But there is like the other side to that is you can be inspired by someone
Yeah,
to do something. So, like probably, there are some characters out there. I already mentioned Goggins, like probably helped me get going in the early days
yeah,
of my, if you because everyone's coming at it at a totally different thing, totally different vantage point. They've maybe not done sport when they're younger or whatever, so it's a totally different animal to them. It seems like this thing that is just so difficult. You've got to like fucking grit your teeth all the way through it, and not that training can't be like that and isn't difficult. But I just find it fascinating how there are so many different mindsets, and I suppose also what you were saying, it's not massively sexy to just say, "Oh yeah, I'm chill as fuck."
yeah,
So, I mean, like it's not as exciting to be like, "Yeah, I'm fucking grinding. Look how hard I am."
yeah,
That kind of thing. So that
yeah.
probably has a big part to play in it.
What was I saying? Was it sex sells? But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think, like, yeah, I just get the, well, I know certainly in triathlon, like, you see some people like posting all the sessions that they do every day, like,
Mm,
this is what I've done, this is what I've done. And I understand, like, yeah, like, it can inspire people to
mm,
go out and do something like that.
mm.
But, like, for me, maybe it's because I've always been so comfortable, like, in my own head and just doing my own
Yeah.
thing. Like, I personally just, like, don't really buy into it. I'm quite content just doing my own thing,
Mm,
focusing on myself. I don't want to, try and keep up with the Joneses. Like, I just like to, you know, do my own thing.
yeah.
I'm doing it for my own reasons. Like one of the questions, oh, I can't think what it was. Someone asked me. someone asked me about something. It was like, I can't even think what they asked me, to be honest. Can't think where I was going with this, but it was almost like, like why'd you do it? Like, oh, that was, yeah, someone asked me to, we were going somewhere. I was like, I don't really, I don't like talking about my achievements. Like, it almost makes me feel uncomfortable. I think Lauren was saying, like, why? And it's like, I think it kind of boils down to, like, I do this for myself. Like, I'm not doing what I do for anyone other than myself. So, like, for me to then post all about it, like, for me, it doesn't feel right because, I kind of want those achievements for myself. Uh, you know, I guess, like, like Strava, the app, is probably a great example of this.
Yeah.
Some of the guys that I train with, like, there's hundreds of people trying to follow me on Strava, and I'm like, some people would probably love that, like, I've got all these people trying to follow me from all around the world, and it's like, for me, I'm like, I don't want them following me. Like, like, everyone laughs about it, I've got a pretty strict, like, policy as to who I let follow me, and, like, one of them is, I have to have, like, been on a bike ride with you or something. So for me, it's like one aspect of it is, I've got a coach. I'm paying for his knowledge and expertise to give me a training plan. For me to then plaster that all over social media, like, for me, that doesn't really sit very well because, like, it's almost like not my information to give away, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. But then
No, it makes
also,
total sense.
like there's some sessions that I do, like, I won't upload any of my swims to Strava for anyone else to see. So, like, only I'll see them because, like, I guess swimming is my strongest, like, thing, strongest one of the three. But, I kind of, like, almost like to keep that to myself. It's my thing. And then if I have a really good, like, bike session or something, I might not upload that. I might just keep that so that, like, not because, the guys who I cycle with in the club, like, I'm not trying to hide it from them, but it's almost like nice to just keep something for myself. Like, I remember one session last year, my coach had given me whatever it was. I think it was 4 lots of 8 minutes at 440 watts or something, which was frigging horrible. But I tried it like 3 or 4 times. I couldn't do it. And then this one night, I did it. I got about halfway through the first one, and my legs just, like, caved in. And then I actually, a video came up on YouTube, and it was actually David Goggins, and I watched a bit of it, and I thought, oh, I'll give this session another go. And then I'd, like, I tried the 8 minutes, failed, then cycled for about half an hour easy, and thought I'll give it another go now. And I ended up, like, completing the session for the first time. It's the only time I completed it. I couldn't complete it after that again. But it's one of the sessions that I've just, like, kept to myself because it's just something that it's a little achievement that I'm pretty proud of, and I almost, like, don't. Well, I've kind of just said it on here now, but it's something that,
Yeah.
I like to keep, to myself. Uh,
That's cool though, man. I think you and I are probably like complete opposites.
yeah,
I'm like the fucking posting my gym stuff online, and I do find myself, like, sometimes, like, what's this for? But I'll go through, like, phases.
yeah,
Like, during my last training block, because I was on plan, I didn't really post much about my training. And kind of what you were saying, it does feel a bit weird, like putting your session down in your Instagram story when someone else has programmed it.
yeah,
But I suppose what I would do is I would tag my coach in it,
yeah, yeah,
so then he's getting promotion and whatever. But then just recently, I've gone. I'm just doing my own thing for a bit. So, but I'm trying to stay accountable. So I have noticed that it does help me stay a bit more accountable because usually I'll film because I'm maybe checking my form on something, and then like, fuck it,
Yeah.
I'll just upload it. But I do find myself thinking, like, do I need to, like, what's this for? Do I need to upload this?
Yeah.
Like, but then the other side of it is, uh, actually, someone who's put a question in for me to ask you later. He was chatting to me the other day. He's from around here. He's moved over to Canada, and he said to me, he said, "Oh, I just wanted to say I've been following your journey and your podcast and stuff, and now I might be totally paraphrasing here. I'm sure he said like it's kind of got inspired me to start getting a training and stuff or whatever. So I guess then I'm like, all right, so that's a positive thing then, like sharing your journey. But
Yeah.
but I'm with you though, man. Like it's a funny balance. Like
Yeah.
how much like because I know when I'm posting myself doing my gym stuff, I'm not doing it for anyone else. Of course, I'm
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But maybe if I was happily married and a bit more content with my family life and stuff,
Yeah.
maybe I wouldn't be asked about that.
Yeah.
But I'm like this single guy who's like, you don't see that many people in real life, so all of your world and stuff, so much of it comes through fucking social media.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally
It's
understand that. Everyone's different, and like
yeah,
everyone prioritizes different things. I guess like almost like playing devil's advocate to what I just said. Like, you know, if I kind of understood that if I was to post stuff like that, that would then inspire people to take up it as well. Am
mm,
I then being selfish for not doing that? Because
yeah.
I could then also be, having a more positive impact by almost like releasing something that I've been like keeping to myself, which could then help someone else.
Well,
Uh,
you know what? Okay, we could imagine a young kid from Barra listens to this podcast
yeah,
and hears about your journey and gets inspired to get into swimming or whatever. So you just don't know, do you?
yeah,
Or I think you just got to stay true to your values. And if your values are like, like privacy and kind of having stuff to yourself, then that's
yeah,
awesome, I think. But I think when you're doing it for the wrong reasons, don't you? So that's what it boils down to, probably.
yeah, yeah,
All right, so I want to talk a bit about all sorts. Heart rate. What are your heart rate numbers during, let's say, that last race? What sort of zones are you in?
So I don't use heart rate strap. Uh,
Of course
I
you don't.
use I use it training. I use
Right.
it well, not currently because I've lost it, but uh, yeah. So heart rate, we used to use it a lot when we were swimming, for example.
Yeah.
Uh, we used to have these little fancy, well, they weren't fancy, they were pretty, uh,
Primitive.
looked like Soviet Union kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you touch the wall and then you grab this little thing with a sponge on the end and like stick it and measure it for thingy. But normally you'd finish, touch the wall, and take it for 6 seconds or take it for 10 seconds, multiply by six to get your heart rate. So we used to use it a lot for that because it's obviously like doing all the lactate testing is bloody expensive, and
Mm.
then to then start poking holes in a load of kids at a swimming pool, it's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? Really. So heart rate's kind of always the best way to go. Uh, so for example, the threshold session, 3100s at threshold, it'd be a case of we're going off a 145 turn round. Try and hold around a 110, and your heart rate should be threshold. What's that? I can't remember what the percentages are now, but for me, it was like you want to be between 160 and 170 heart rate.
Mm.
anything above 170, you're then kind of pushing into what we used to call heart rate zone, which I guess would then be your kind of zone 4.
Zone 4, yeah.
And then above 180, you're then at kind of zone 5. And then anything over 190, 200, you're then kind of doing your all-out sprints. So for me, coming from swimming, I always had a really, I guess, from training for a 4-minute event, you're absolutely pinning it, like almost like bouncing off the red line for 4 minutes. It's not an all-out sprint. I think 100 meters are like they're your big buff sprinters and that. Your 200s are more like.
Yeah, that 4 minutes, because there's that Norwegian Norwegian 4x4 or whatever, and obviously that's a 4 minute.
Yeah.
So there's obviously some magic in that, being able to hold that pace for 4 minutes, or that heart rate.
Yeah. And then like 200s you use what you call like middle distance. Then 400 was typically a longer event in swimming. Your longest event's 1500, which might take 15 minutes, just under for the quickest guys. So for me, coming from that, when I started cycling, I was doing a lot of like the local hill climbs, and for me I was always pretty good at them because I was used to just like bouncing off the red line for 3 or 4 minutes, going all out. So although I'd not done much cycling, I didn't have much power, but my body was like physiologically able to just sit at that red line.
Your aerobic
and just like
conditioning was so good.
Deal with the lactic acid for that amount of time. So for me, training for the longest stuff, it was almost like retraining my whole body to like cope in a completely different way. I think like I said before, we used to do all like the lactate testing, and I think the highest I had my VO2 max measured at was 82.9. That was like mid-season, but it used to like fluctuate. And like start of the season, it was probably like just over 70, 60, 68 or something, and then the highest it got to was about 82. I don't know if that means anything, but
yeah.
And then we used to have like your lactate, you had your lactate power as well, which was I can't think. I've got it written down somewhere in one of my logbooks, but we used to get 3 values, and those 3 values then dictated how we'd like train for the next whatever it was 2-month block before we then got retested. So at a younger age, we used heart rate a lot because it was a lot easier. But then towards the end, you kind of get to the point where like what paces you need to be hitting for each heart rate. So for me, 3100s thresholds, I know I probably short course hold 57s, 58 seconds for each 100, going off of like a 20 turn round. And when you're doing it day in, day out, you almost know how fast you're swimming anyway. Like you could probably touch the wall and guess within a second or two, like what your time was for that 100. So we kind of moved less away from heart rate, more towards just like going off feel, really, like where you should be at. And then towards the end, we were using all the lactate stuff, which then almost like backed up what we were thinking. Sometimes it threw up a complete like random one. It's like, oh no, we've like for a lot of us, it was all of our easy sessions. We were still swimming like far too quick. And like your easy sessions, we ended up, more or less just like floating along for an hour. But yeah, in terms of heart rate training now, I personally don't like racing in a heart rate strap just because I don't like swimming in one. And I don't want to have to faff around putting one in transition.
What would you reckon? Like, do you reckon you're above threshold on any of it? Or do you reckon you stay around that level, or because I have no idea because I've not done one.
I think so. So for the swim, like I'll go out pretty hard for the first couple 100 meters, and I'll probably be like zone 4-ish, maybe for a few minutes, and then I'll back it right back. Swim, I'm probably like low end of zone 2.
Right.
Just like really trying to conserve as much energy as I can. But again, I'm quite like lucky that I'm able to do that and still be pretty quick.
Yeah.
Biking, yeah, you don't really want to be getting into the red. You don't really want to be producing any lactic or not as much lactic acid.
Can't
Uh,
clear it the same, can you?
yeah, so for me, you're probably like high end of zone 2, bottom of zone 3,
Mm.
and then on the run, depending how hot it is, uh, like I'm probably sat at like 160ish on the run. Towards the end, it'll creep up throughout the run. I'll probably be 170 towards the end if I'm like really pushing it still.
To be like 4-5 there, yeah, for zone 4-5.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
probably like getting to the top of zone 4.
Mm.
Like some of my build runs that I do, I'll start at whatever it is, yeah, 150, 155 heart rate, and then yeah, I'll tend to normally finish them like just above 170,
Mm.
and they're like you kind of race like replicating runs, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, I think like comparing across like the three sports, like my heart rate in swimming is probably super low. For the perceived effort across all three, if I were to think I was going the same effort, heart rate in swimming would be lower. I think bike would be in the middle, and then run would be probably higher.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting because am I right in thinking the run's a majority of the race, right?
The bike,
Oh, it's the bike. Right,
yeah.
okay.
So well, like Roth, for example, like for argument's sake, it said in 8 hours I was just over, but 40, 50 minutes swim, 4.5 on the bike, and then just under 3 hours on the run.
Right, yes. Yeah, yeah, of course.
So yeah, the bike is the longest portion. Is it like
It's
60%?
interesting
I think.
how you having that amazing swimming base and like you say, be able to sit in low zone 2 is then helping you in so many ways because you've got like not only have you got the head start, but you've got like physiologically you're in just a chilled out, a bit of a
Yeah,
more relaxed
it's
state.
it's yeah, it's almost like a warm up. It's like a hard warm up for me.
Yeah,
Uh, Whereas like some people, like even like for most like triathletes to go under an hour in the swim, like that's moving. Uh,
mm,
but there'll be people who have to really push to do that, and then we've all got a certain number of matches, and if you want to blow them all on the swim, like you're in for a pretty rough day.
yeah,
Whereas for me, if I were to do that and really push it, I might make 30 or 40 seconds up. Whereas if I can just chill
mm,
out and then save all those matches for when I actually need them in the run, for example,
yeah.
for me, like that's how I race it.
Well, it's like yeah, if anyone who didn't really know too much about training looked at it, they'll go, right, if I'm a cyclist, I'll do well. Or if I'm a runner, I'll probably do quite well. The swim,
Yeah,
we'll figure that out. It's only like it's not that far, but it's kind of the opposite.
yeah, yeah. It's
Interesting.
yeah. I think obviously I can't speak from experience, but like getting into swimming if you haven't done it from a young age is quite difficult. Uh, so
Mm,
it's not like it's difficult to run and cycling. Like with running and cycling, it's
yep.
to a
There's no
degree. The more
skill.
the more of it you do, the better you get.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas swimming, you could be going down the pool, doing 10 hours a week in the pool, but if you're not doing the right things, like you're not going to improve. Like
yeah.
you'll get fitter, but you won't necessarily get quicker. Uh, so it's one of the sports where you really benefit from having a proper coach
Mm,
for both technique and the work that you're doing in the pool.
yeah. See, it's the same reason like why I've never done a triathlon because I'm a shit swimmer. I could breaststroke for fucking ages, but
Well, yeah, but you can do that. Like
yeah, yeah,
it's Like one of the big things that I always like, people always like, well, how do you do it? It's like I'm not special. Like anyone can do it. Like it's not
Mm.
like I'm no different to anyone else. Like fair enough, I've swam from a young age, but I still work a normal job. Like
Yeah.
for me, like I said before, I've just found a balance that works for me that allows me to do what I
Mm.
do at a certain level. You know, I'm you know I'm not saying that if someone does exactly what I do, they'll get the exact same results. Uh, but if everyone, I think everyone's capable of doing something like that, and it's
Yeah, for
just
sure.
finding what works for you in order to do that.
Let's talk training.
Yep.
What do you so what does a pre-season typically look like? And in terms of looking at blocks of training, do you ever do you do specific blocks? Do we have like a running block, a cycling block, a strength training? How does those all interplay?
Uh, it. I'm going to say no. We don't do that. It kind of just it's almost like more general. So towards the start of the year, a lot of it is probably more like take the bike for example. Like it might be more about building up your FTP, your functional threshold power. Uh, so the training might be I tend to do a lot of the like aerobic power sessions. So putting out higher power but for shorter periods. It's almost like building like the strength in the legs. Uh, so I tend to do a lot more of that earlier in the season. But I'll never do one of them like close to a race,
Mm,
just because it's not really appropriate. You don't really need to be in 40-second burst of high power when you're going to be riding a bike for 4.5 hours at a pretty moderate intensity. So throughout the year, you kind of go from almost like less specific like race work into more specific. So
like
towards the end,
general prep, and
yeah.
then
So like a few weeks before the race, I'll be going out for 4 hours on my race bike and doing 4 lots of 45 minutes at race power with 5 minutes recovery in between.
mm,
Whereas at the start of the year, you're probably doing a lot more of your higher power, higher intensity stuff, but for shorter periods to kind of like build up for that. I guess it's the same with the running. Running is a lot more for me. I try and do more off-road stuff throughout the winter because it's a bit more enjoyable than just
mm,
running on all the streets. It's quite nice to just get out around the lakes. I didn't do as much of it last year, but that was mainly because of work. But like
I
running
did
around
a
Grise,
bit. I did a bit of trail stuff like off season this year, and I felt like
yeah,
it really helped
yeah,
because you've got
it's
to have strong ligaments and everything, and all the different.
exactly, yeah. So it's more about almost like setting up your season so that you're not gonna get injured, for example. So running on all the rocky trails around like Coniston and that, it's
Mm,
good for like building the strength in your ankles so that you're not gonna get a silly little niggle 3 weeks before your race that then puts you out for a week and it ruins your build up into your race. So yeah, running's probably a lot less intense earlier on in the season, but you kind of just do like more general running. So like this week, first week back, I'm probably going to do maybe up to 40-45k of running this week. And none of that's been above your zone 2 kind
mm,
of effort. Uh, just to build back into it. So tomorrow, I'm actually meeting my coach tomorrow. We're going for like a 90-minute trail run, just to have a bit of a chat. The running on trails is a bit softer as well, so you're not putting as much load like through your knees and your ankles and that. So it's just a bit more forgiving as well, and it allows
mm.
you to like kind of build back into it a bit easier. Like, I don't need to be going out and doing 2 hour runs on the road, running, 90 minutes of that at race pace at the
Mm.
moment, because it takes so much out of you. You can't maintain that all year. So for me, it's not, oh, this block is going to be running on this. It's kind of just, it's just very gradually like building up throughout the year. And then, like, my coach always laughs because it's almost like you're chomping at the bit to do more earlier on in the season. And he's always like, you won't be saying this, when in the middle of a big week, 5 weeks out from your race, you'll be wishing you were doing 90-minute easy round Grisdale Forest.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, like for me, I'm one of the people where I do quite like to kind of push it. I like looking at my stats and saying, oh, I've done, slightly more distance this week than I did last week. So then if I get a little roll of that and I'm like, oh, this one's not going to be as high, I'd always be tempted to, like, not put in an extra session, but, try and extend one of my bike rides just so that I could keep on increasing it. But
Seeing that visual like
yeah,
progression.
but I know that I'm quite, like, the last like year or so, I've kind of learnt that I don't need to be doing that. And again, that kind of comes back to the point I mentioned earlier about, like, the social media. You kind of almost feel like you're, not that you have to do it, but like you're always like almost more encouraged to do it because
I think Strava probably has a lot to answer for that.
yeah,
I mean, like anyone who's had a Strava and then got a coach and then they tell them to go out and do zone 2 and they're like,
yeah,
they don't want to post the time. I
yeah,
literally had this conversation with someone and they're like, oh, I feel like I'm not going fast enough. I was like, fuck Strava.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Um,
It's a blessing and a curse, isn't it?
yeah.
Like for me, I use it as a training log. Uh, I do also keep a logbook, just because it's something I did when I was swimming, so I can go back. I didn't do it for all my years swimming, unfortunately. I did it for the last like few, but every session I'd write it down in my little book, and then I'd write a few. This was a set that I did. These were the target times. This was the paces that I held. Uh, don't go into too much detail about, like, oh, this is how I felt, and I could have done this and that. It's more like, these are the numbers that I did, and kind of go from there. So for me, I quite like to just keep a log of it.
Mm.
And yeah, Strava's just another way of doing that.
What's your coach called?
Joel Jameson.
Joel Jameson. I seen Jameson coaching,
Yeah,
but I just didn't know his first name.
yeah. So he's, uh, yeah, a bit pretty weird how I kind of met him, actually. So it was, when was it? So one of our substitute history teachers, I don't know if you, Miss Pickthall. Did you ever have Miss Pickthall?
Yeah. Yeah,
She
she was
always,
substitute. Yeah, she was always a supply teacher.
yeah. So
Is it
so she,
Jane Pickfall?
I still call her Mrs. Pickthall, but
Like
so
really
then,
nice, sweet woman.
yeah,
Am
like
I
quite
thinking of the same
short.
one?
It will be, yeah. She I think she only really teached at Ulverston, but yeah, she was only a substitute. But anyway,
She had
so
selective hearing.
yeah,
We
so
used
she
to
was
say all sorts of shit, and she wouldn't hear it.
so she was so her daughter at the time, Catherine, she used to do a bit of swimming,
Yeah,
uh,
she had a daughter, didn't she? Yeah, I remember now.
and Catherine, she was quite a good swimmer, and she got into triathlon. But because of the swimming, like, whenever Miss Pickthall took my class, I'd always just get called to the front of the class, and we just sit there chatting about, swimming and what we've been up to, kind of thing.
Mm.
And it was after I'd signed up for Bolton in 20. It was in the summer of 2020. Like, I was just at a cafe in the lakes, and I bumped into Catherine, And we just got chatting. And I said that I've started a triathlon. She was like, "Oh, you should speak to Joel, like my husband, who's a coach." And then yeah, I had a bit of a chat with him. Met him up for a brew and met up with him for a brew and yeah, just started working with him from there. But I like compared to him, like I'm like a complete control freak. Like he's so laid back. Uh, it's like compared to me, it's just completely different. If you think I'm relaxed, like compare it to him, it's completely different. But yeah, he's absolutely brilliant. He coaches quite a few like high level like age group triathletes now. You got Grant, obviously from Barrow. Neil Eddy, who just came second in his age group out in Kona the other week. He's a very good triathlete. And then you've got a few other guys who, Jack Schofield, he was out in Kona when we were there. So when we were in Kona, we had five of us there, which was pretty impressive. But yeah.
So, what would your coach say about you if you weren't in the room?
God. I don't know, he'd probably call me
Joel, sorry. Not your coach, Joel.
I don't know, he'd probably call me a goofball or something. he's so relaxed. He's like, I think like sometimes I do get quite not worked up, but maybe, you know, like I'm an engineer, like, you know, swimming, it was always like you focus on the finer details and like, you know, little things can have a massive impact. And like Joel's pretty good because it's not that he doesn't care, but he's quite good at just like, he just gets you to forget about that and just like, you know, even it's just a case of like, I'll just remember to enjoy it. Like sometimes you go into a race and, you know, I'm that focused on getting this time or getting this position, and it's like, you know, you do sometimes forget that you're doing it because you enjoy it. And he's like, for me, he's really good because he always just like brings you back to that. It's like after Roth before Portugal, and I was, you know, saying, I'm really struggling with motivation. He's like, well, you know, if you don't fancy it, then don't do it. Like we're only doing this because we enjoy doing it. Like it's not. I'm not a professional. I'm not doing this because it's my sole income. You know, I'm doing this as a hobby, and yeah, he's just pretty good with kind of like bringing it back to that.
I suppose it's like, yeah, there's a theme here with like balance, and I suppose a good coach brings out the other side of you that's not as active. So whether that's, you know, if you are being mega detailed, he's there to kind of give you the big picture view.
Yeah.
And it, you know, just occurred to me as you were saying that then, actually, because I love the data. I love like really getting into the weeds, and shout out to Matty Green. I don't know if you know Matty.
Yeah, I did a few sessions there a few years back.
Yeah. So, and you know, and me saying before about relaxing and stuff, that's probably come from him. You know, because he'd be like, just relax, and I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it take after a while, like, oh yeah, he's right. That's a good coach, right?
Yeah, it's even like, you know, I'll give him a ring the day before a race now to go through, you know, like my race plan. And I always ring him expecting him to like give me a detailed race plan. And it's always like, he's like, you know what you're doing, just go out and make sure you enjoy it. But it's like, I'm like, yeah, but you know what power should I aim to hold? And he's like, just do what feels right. So, you know, when I was saying before about, you know, cycling up a hill, like focusing on like not doing too much power, it's like at the end of the day, it's just a lot of it is just going off feel. Same with the heart rate stuff. Like you'll know if you're pushing too hard, and it's just kind of just vibe it.
Yeah, and I suppose that's like the benefit of experience, because you can't just pick that up by having a fancy watch.
Yeah.
Like you have to learn how your
Yeah,
body feels, know to be aware of when you're pushing it too hard.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Um, what about carbs and food? So, how many carbs you have in during a race? How much per hour?
I can get it on my notes actually. So this probably sounds bad, but like I've been through this with Joel before, and he's that laid back. We've never really come up with a plan. It's
Yeah,
always just been, if you're hungry, eat. Or if you're hungry,
yeah.
it's too late. You probably should have already eaten. Uh, did I save it in here? No, I didn't. Yeah, I was doing night shifts before Mallorca. I probably shouldn't say this. My manager watches it, but I think one of the nights I had on my lunch break, I I calculated my body weight, how many carbs I should be having per hour, like
Yeah.
for Mallorca for the half distance. I know like a few years back it was always 80, 90 grams of carbs per hour was the optimum, but people are smashing nearly double that now, aren't they? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, you know I was I just picked a random number and thought, right, 120, I'll go for that. So using the energy drink that I use, I calculate, well, there's this many grams of carbs per 100 gram, and I
Mm-hmm.
can dilute that in this much water. So with me three 750 ml bottles, I can get this many grams of carbs in total for the bike leg. And then I'm like, right, that only gets me to, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but let's say it gets me, uh, I'm still at a 60-gram deficit if I cycle for 2 hours 15 minutes on the bike. Pardon me. So then it's like, oh, I need to make up that 60 grams elsewhere. So at that point, I'm then taking solid food, energy bars. Uh, I personally don't like taking gels when I'm on the bike because uh, it's easier to digest solids when you're on the bike.
Mm.
Whereas running, you can't really do that. So I quite almost like to. Always feels like I'm lining my stomach with the solid food on the bike, so that when I do go onto the gels on the run, it's not as bad.
Mm.
So yeah, I'll calculate. It was about 120 I went for Mallorca,
How
and
much do you
then
weigh?
currently I don't really weigh myself, but I'm probably around 85, probably
Mm.
close to 90. But I've like my weight's always been consistent. At
Yeah.
swimming at Loughborough, we used to get weighed twice a week, uh, which I don't know if you saw it, but there was a bit of a bit of a hoo ha in the press about it. It was all over BBC News, uh, about how it's promoting. It would. It was like obviously I didn't know about it at the time, but it was promoting like eating disorders within the
Mm-hmm.
team. It was
Yeah.
quite a big thing across the whole of British swimming,
Yeah.
uh, which to me it's kind of going away from what we're talking about. But it's absolutely baffling to me because in the water, like weight it doesn't really have much of an effect.
No.
Uh, you're pretty much weightless anyway.
Yeah.
If anything, having a layer of fat's better because then you're more buoyant because fat's less dense than muscle, so you sit higher
Yeah.
in the water, so you got less of your body in the water, so then it's easier to pull yourself through the air than it is the water. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so anyway, we used to get weighed every twice a week, every week. I was always around 84, 85 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, going into corner, I was probably the fittest I'd ever been. I was probably the leanest I'd ever been. I was about 81 kilos there. Uh, but this last year I've been sat at like 88, probably 89. Uh, I don't watch what I eat. I'll just, I'm, yeah, I've probably got quite a bad diet. I do like donuts. Lauren's just sent me pictures of some donuts in London that she's got, so I've asked her to bring some back. But like I understand some people will do exercise as a means to allow them
Yeah.
to eat whatever they want. I live with people at uni who, you know, they they'd always like be really strict on what they ate because like they almost they put on weight quite easily, whereas
Mm-hmm.
I never really had that issue. So So I've never.
I
I
think
think
if
because I've
you're,
always been this active, I've never
yeah,
had to like worry about it. So for me, I don't do what I do so that I can eat what I want. I just I just I do it because I enjoy it, and I enjoy eating whatever I want.
yeah,
But
that's cool.
yeah, I guess coming back to the original question, grams of carbs per hour. Yeah, aim for 120. Calculated it wrong. Mallorca, I was on about 135, which is probably why I did all right. So then from there for Roth, I was like, right, we can push it a bit further. So I think Roth, I was aiming for 130 to 140 grams, so around that kind of region. And then yeah, same again for Portugal. And
So
this year, I guess looking at it, my performances have been more consistent, and they've probably been better this year.
yeah,
And you like other things have happened, but I think nutrition's definitely been one of the things that I've focused on more.
so you're probably like about like if you take your kilos and times that by 1.4, that's kind of roughly your grammage per hour,
Yeah, yeah,
isn't it? Something like that. Are you? I seen you got a Kendall mint cake uh, mentioned in your Instagram. Are
yeah.
they like sponsor you or anything?
Shameless plug. Yes, well, yes and no. So Jack, the lad who owns it, he's from Carlisle. He was
Right.
City of Carlisle. He was the year above us. So at counties and that, we always used to race each other in finals, and he was a good he was a good sprinter,
Mm,
breaststroke and freestyle. He's a tall. I'm 6'2" and he's like 6'4", 6'5".
mm,
But yeah, so I swam with him for years. I worked out in Mallorca for a couple of summers, swim coaching out there, and we ended up living together while he was doing the same, and then he went to Loughborough as well. So I've known him for years, and he started Kendall Mint a couple of years back, and yeah, just kind of said, "Oh, do you fancy doing something?" So uh, yeah, he helps us out each month, just not financially or anything, just gives us
yeah.
enough product to get me through like my training and that, and then just so that I can race. But yeah, I think it's it's quite it is quite a personal thing, like what nutrition you use.
Mm,
Some people will probably buy the really fancy stuff because the people that they aspire to and look up to probably use it, which is fine. Like
yeah.
if like whereas for me, you know, I quite like the fact that I'm able to help out, a relatively small business, someone that I'm like grew up with. I'm able to give him a bit of publicity and help him out.
Mm,
Uh, you know, I might be able to approach some of the other companies, and I might be able to get a free thing here and there, but
mm,
at the end of the day, like, they don't care. They don't care about
yeah.
me. Like they've got whoever else they've got, but for me, I like to be able to help out Jack and uh, yeah, Jack and the Kendall Mint guys, and
That's cool.
yeah, no, I really appreciate obviously them helping me out as well.
Is it? Do you know? uh, Is there any fructose in them, or is it all glucose?
I should know this, but I don't know this. Uh, yeah, I, I can't answer that because I don't know.
It's all right. It's a very geeky question.
Yeah, I can go and
No,
grab
just
one and
'cause-
have a look.
yeah, I was just trying. I was thinking because so I take the the Hilltop honey gels,
Right.
and it's always been like the advantage of honey is that it's kind of like made up of a mixture of fructose and glucose, and there's two different pathways or whatever how it gets into the muscle. And you see it on some of the gels these days, like how much it's 60% fructose or
Yeah, like a
whatever.
2-to-1 ratio or something, isn't it? Or
Yeah.
yeah,
So I was just interested. Yeah, but be interesting. even if there isn't fructose in there, then
Yeah,
that's also very interesting because it's working for you. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. But yeah, one of the things I quite like as well is obviously all the flavors have an element of mint. So the gels that I personally like to use is the raspberry mint one.
Yeah.
So it's sweet, so quite like the taste of that. But then also you get like a menthol effect. So
Oh, so they do flavored ones. It probably does have fructose in then if it's got like a
yeah,
raspberry.
it's
Yeah.
like running in a hot country, like taking like a load of menthol as well. It feels like it like cools you down.
Yeah.
So like you get a few like colder breaths, which is sometimes quite refreshing. So yeah, I personally quite like to use it. I'm not just using it because he's helping me out with
Yeah.
it. Like I genuinely quite enjoy it.
Oh, that's cool. We'll link them up in the show notes as well. All right, let's move on to audience questions. So I contacted a few people that I noticed were following you. Some
Yeah.
some might be friends, some might be just followers. I don't know. So you'll have to tell me if you know any of them. So first one is from Sam Fisher.
Right.
He said, "How did you find the transition from swimming to an event which is predominantly running?"
Yeah. So yeah, I guess we kind of touched on it before. So the main thing for me was going from a 4-minute event to a 10-hour event. It's well, arguably I was pretty fit when I was swimming, but it's a complete different ball game to doing an Ironman. So for me, one of the biggest things that I struggled with uh, was the training and building up to it. I thought, I trained 30 hours a week. I can train 30 hours a week for triathlon, but it was not like that. Wasn't the case. I go out for a run and after 5 minutes, my legs would be falling off, like because I'm not used to it. So a lot of it was like cardiovascular fitness. I had it, but muscular endurance just wasn't there. So like looking back now at like the average paces that I was doing, like at the time I thought was quick, like going for a run, like the paces that I was doing then, like at the time felt really hard, whereas now like I won't even warm up at that pace because like I've built up that muscular endurance over a period of like 3 or 4 years that allows me to do that now. So that was like I was definitely naive in thinking that I've done a bit of swimming, like how hard can a triathlon be? And I think when I did, pardon me, when I did do that first race at Keswick, uh, just off a bit of running, a bit of cycling, I think it kind of almost like fueled that naivety, and I thought, an Ironman will be fine now. Whereas, yeah, it really wasn't. So yeah, a lot of it I had to hold myself back in the training that I wanted to do. Like similar to social media, like I saw people going out and doing 100-mile rides and this and that, and I thought, but yeah, brilliant, I'll do that. But like physically, I couldn't do it. I could do it, like, but not. I could do the distance, but
You weren't
not.
conditioned. Yeah.
Yeah, nowhere near. And it'd take me 5 days to recover from it. Whereas now, assuming you fuel right and rest properly, like you could do it pretty regularly. But yeah, that was a big challenge. That this is like one of the other things as well. Like swimming, it's non-weight bearing. I've never played rugby, never football. No, like I said, never ran. So I know 22, I think, I had a bit of a knee issue and I got an MRI scan, and it was one of the things I noticed was like my bone density was a lot less dense than like the average person, like of someone my age, because I've never done
Not had
like
as much impact.
yeah,
Yeah.
never done any impact sports, so I have to do but I don't do it, but a lot of like gym work and conditioning work to kind of compensate for that. So that was another thing that I've struggled with. You know, I probably could, again, cardiovascularly go out and do 100k running weeks, but my knees will probably blow themselves to bits in 1 week of doing that. So, and again, it's finding that balance. I'm quite happy just doing what I'm doing, and for me, the distances that I do currently work for what I'm doing. So yeah, it just comes back to that, finding that balance.
Yeah, it's amazing how that conditioning and like you said, the muscle endurance is such a big thing. Because I've always noticed whenever I've done running events or whatever all my years, and it's always been like I feel like I can keep going, but my legs are going no, and they're cramping up or whatever, and it's like cardiovascular, you feel fine.
Yeah.
But usually it's the that side that starts to break down first. Geordie Hammond says, Geordie,
Yeah.
who are your biggest influences?
Again, coming out as being like my dad, like me dad. Yeah, he's probably been my biggest influence from the start. My granddad as well. I've not really spoke about him, but he was always my biggest fan. He was always, every time we were in the paper, he'd save every single one, and he used to absolutely love it. So yeah, just in terms of people that I aspire to be like, in swimming it was, I don't know if you can remember him, Matt Bow. So
No.
he must be, I can't think how old he is now, but he swam at Barrow when he was younger,
Right.
and he moved away and swam at Loughborough, and he ended up swimming at the Commonwealth Games, World Championships. He didn't swim the Olympics, but he swam at a high level, and for me, he was always the person that I looked up to. He came from Barrow. I think he lived up at Southcroft, so he was driving in every morning to swim at Barrow and do all that. And for me, it was always that's what I wanted to be like. So yeah, I always kind of looked up to Matt, and then he's over in the States now coaching. I can't think he was at Berkeley. I think he's at Michigan now. He's one of the head coaches, so he's one of the best coaches over in the States now for the collegiate program, which is crazy. And he's from Barrow as well.
Yeah, Barrow's got some awesome athletes and high performers. Like once you start looking,
yeah, even the guys that I train with, Grant's been up there. Like my wife, she's swam the Olympic trials with us, and she's been to the Kona World Championships. And then you've got Sam and Tom Stevenson, who are currently almost elite level GB cyclists for the UCI marathon mountain biking. So it's pretty crazy that I can message someone on, again, on social media, just message them and say, oh, you fancy going out, and you're training with some of the highest quality athletes in the world, and they're in Barrow.
I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when you actually look at it.
Yeah, it's cool. He also says, do you have a discount code for Kendall Mink cake /gels?
I don't actually know. I'll have to ask Jack about that one.
See if you can get one, and we'll put it in the links.
Yeah, I will.
Adam Walker, you'll know Adam, won't you?
Yes.
He's a biker, mountain biker. He's a very good biker, actually. He says, motivation to train when you're working a full-time job.
Yeah. For me, it just comes back to it's ultimately what I enjoy doing. I like getting up in the morning, going for a swim, straight into the office, do me whatever it is at work, come back, whether it's go out for a run or go out on the bike. It's I rarely struggle with the motivation. This, obviously, last year after Roth, that was towards the end of the season when you've been doing it for 12 months, pretty much full on. You do start struggling with it, but you know, my wife Lauren, she's pretty good at just, you know, you've only got a couple more weeks of it, like do it, then you can like enjoy your off season. It's like now though, I'm in kind of in the off season, get back into it, and I'm like, I want to be doing, you know, stupid training sessions again, but I know I won't want to do that, you know, in 10 months' time. So yeah, it's just like, it's just not going too full on too soon. But for me, I ultimately enjoy doing it. I like riding my bike, I like going for runs, and I like swimming. So it's not something I typically struggle with. It probably doesn't answer that question, but
No,
yeah.
I think it totally makes sense. I've got quite a lot here actually, so I'm going to just pick a few. Ryan Thomas says,
Yep.
He's put 3. Let me pick one. What are his go-to prehab and mobility exercises during his training block?
God.
Proper techie one.
Yeah. So one that I always do, I've always done it with swimming, is the TheraBand. So rotator cuff stuff. Probably getting a bit geeky now, but like with the swim technique, a lot of the stroke that I've always kind of like, for me, it's kind of main bit of the stroke is getting the catch. So, you know, people will say like you're getting the feel for the water. So it's not like putting your hand in too soon and just pulling straight back. Because if you do that, you haven't caught the water, and you're not pulling back as much water as you can. So for me, it's always like you need to enter the water smoothly, a bit of a glide, and then obviously get the feel for the water, which probably makes no sense. And then you can start like your catch phase, your pull phase, sorry. So, you know, for me, I have got pretty long arms. So when you're doing, you know, millions of shoulder rotations every year for swimming, like shoulder injuries are so common. So you have to strengthen a lot of your rotator cuff, your deltoids and that. So TheraBand, we used to take it everywhere, every single session. You know, you just do all your activation stuff, holding it on the floor and going that way, then also going down, external and internal rotations, all different, you know, variations of that to just, you know, strengthen all the little muscles. I'm by no means a biologist or whatever it is, but from what I can remember from getting so many injuries, there's a lot of little muscles that make up like the shoulder, and it's making sure that, especially for swimming, that all of them are thoroughly activated and not, there's no like weak point. So yeah, for swimming, always rotator cuff. And then one of the ones for running that I've been doing a lot of recently since that knee injury is calf raises. I probably can't go into too much detail as to why I do it, but I got told to do it by the physio, and it's something that I continue to do. So I do a lot of calf raises, and then a lot of like hip activation stuff as well. So what they call the little turtle ones, when you put the band around your knees, lying on your side, and you
Clamshell.
open. That's the one. Yep.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, and then your single leg. I call it like a single leg hip bridge. So that you lie on your back, and
single leg glute bridge.
that's the one.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, and then like in the gym as well. I don't really touch the weights. Like if I'm doing squats, I'll just use the bar, which, you know, probably looks quite funny. I'm in there in lifting shoes, just squatting the bar, but like, you know, people can think what they want, but for me, like that's what I want to do. But yeah, shoulders, hips, and knees tend to be the ones that I focus on.
I think those calf raises are put in there for the run on that muscular endurance side of it, maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I can't answer, to be honest. I quite like doing them as well. I enjoy them.
Yeah. I probably need to do more calf raises. All right, he also says, what does the pinnacle look like for him in terms of achievements?
It's probably not even an answer, but I just want to enjoy it. I think, like I said before, like when I did Bolton and then Corner, like the dream was like go pro and this and that, and I raced when I won Ironman Lanzarote last year in 23, and it's the first, I think it was the first one that I won maybe, but I was that focused on getting within the certain percentage of the winning time of the winning pro that I didn't see it as an achievement, and for me it was. I remember speaking to my coach, and he was like, "You've just won, one of the hardest Ironmans that you can do, and you're not over the moon with it." And like for me, I then just felt like really guilty for not actually enjoying what I'd set out to like enjoy. And I didn't really. I personally at that time, I didn't see it as an achievement because ultimately I'd failed what I wanted to achieve. Even though I'd won the race, I hadn't achieved what I wanted to achieve. And then after a few like weeks of it, I was like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, like I eventually came around to it, and at that point, I was like, it was almost like I was, what's the word, like an epiphany. I was like, I don't want to go pro. Like, if I go pro, like the level they're at, I'm currently, I'm competitive in an age group field. Like, I can go to a race now and I can have a pretty good scrap with, with the, that top level of guys in the age group race, and that's enjoyable. Whereas if I go in a pro field, I'll be scrapping for 30th place, and it's like I don't think I'd enjoy that as much. So for me, like after that race, it was like I'm only going to do races that I'm like sure that I'll enjoy. So one of the big things I've said to Lauren is I don't do the same race twice, and I want to use it as an excuse to race in other countries that I wouldn't normally, or new countries that we haven't been to. So I'm doing the Challenge Championship in Slovakia next year. Never been to Slovakia before, but we thought, oh, bugger it, that's an excuse to go there. So ultimately, for me, it's just a case of I just want to make sure that I'm doing it because I enjoy it, and I'm not doing it for any other reason.
That's cool.
Yeah, if that answers it.
Yeah, defo. And I think what's interesting is like, it's like, what's the point in doing it to compete if you're not enjoying it? And then it's like, you might as well go and enjoy it and just focus on that. And then paradoxically, if you just enjoy it, you probably will perform better anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's like some wisdom in there for sure.
It's big, like one of the biggest regrets is when I first did that one at Bolton. I crossed, like they always have the camera on the finish line, and I crossed it, and I had my head like right down because I was looking at the floor, and I was like why? I didn't celebrate, even I'd like I came second overall. I won my age group, and I would like again I didn't celebrate it for what it was, and like there's lots of people who would probably they'd be wishing that they were able to do this that they can't. So it's just do it because you enjoy it, and make sure that you enjoy it.
Yeah, man. Callum Finlay.
Yep.
You know Callum? He says, "Oh, we've covered that one. Grams for Ironman. Grams per carbs per gram. Yeah, whatever. We've done that. But also
140.
he sent a few. What did he? All right, we've actually covered that as well. What does a peak? Oh, this one's good. Yeah. So what does a peak training week look like? It must be 25 hours plus. So I guess like pre-taper.
Yeah.
What's that week look like?
I think So the biggest actual training week that I've done, I think, was 23 hours. It's like sometimes we'll do a stupid like in August we did a coast to coast from we cycled Barrow to Amble and then back to Carlisle. So like it was like 16 hours on the bike that week, but it's like that's pretty abnormal. But in terms of like a normal big week, it's I rarely go over 20 hours, mainly because I work full time. So just like a general week, I'll swim 3 times if I'm not away with work. I'll swim three mornings, and maybe only do an hour and 15 tops. Every now and then I'll do a 7 or 8k session, which I'll be in for hour and 40 or something, just to do like a bit of a longer one. But yeah, three swim, 2 gym, and then kind of alternate run bike in the evenings, and then long bike Saturday with maybe a run off the bike, long run Sunday, and then an easy bike in the evening to kind of recover. But yeah, maybe three a bit hours in the pool, 2 hours in the gym, 10 or 11 hours on the bike, and then 5 hours running is probably that's like a big week for me.
Yeah.
But also, like, I've also got a life. Like, I don't want to be out on the bike all day on a Saturday because I'll never see my wife. So
Yeah.
like, I'll try and get out as early as I can in the morning if she's not training as well, and then like the afternoon we can go out and do something else. So
Do you ever
yeah.
train them together? As in, like, yeah, like do like a mini try or anything like that?
Yeah, so like brick sessions is one of the
Or is that
big
what they call? Oh,
things.
that's what a brick session is, right?
Yeah, so obviously it's a bit more difficult doing like a swim to a bike session because you've got to dry off and get changed and do all that.
Mm.
You got to get home to get your bike and all that lot. But like bike to run, like most, like in that like almost like race preparation phase, a lot of those Saturday sessions I'll be doing, like I said, for like 4 hours on the bike with whatever it is, 5 half-an-hour blocks at race effort. Finish that, and then as quickly as you can, which for me normally entails lying down on the stairs or something and moaning about it for 20 minutes before I then put my running shoes on. And then going out and doing, an hour's run at, building to race pace or something.
Oh, so that bike run is not bike and then run the next day. It's bike run in the
Yes,
evenings.
yeah. So the
Bike run, yeah,
Saturday's
yeah,
normally a bike run brick session, and then the
yeah,
Sunday will just be a long run, and
yeah,
then a ride later on. Uh, but yeah, like most of the I would very rarely I don't do run to bike sessions. It's always bike to run.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I'm quite bad for getting straight out on the run. Whereas like Grant, who I train with, he'll have finished his run before I even get my shoes on.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, it's also because he's a much quicker runner. But yeah.
Well, maybe that rest period's doing you some good. All right, mate. Well, I'll start to wrap things up. So,
Yeah.
what's the? We've maybe covered it, but I always like to ask people like what the plans are, like what's coming up for this next year. Anything we've
Uh,
not spoken about?
I've not. Well, yeah. So I've not. I've only booked that one race so far, which is the Challenge Championship in Slovakia, which is in May. Uh, I've not. Like I said before, I was planning on doing Nice at the end of the year, but I didn't take my qualification slot, so I then decided I wasn't going to do a full distance, but I was on the bike on the turbo, watching the World Champs in Kona, and then decided I wanted to do a full distance. So now I'm trying to decide which one to do. So I'd like to target going under 8 hours. I think it'd be a little like another little project for me that I know I can really kind of get stuck into, but yeah, that is going to be difficult. Like there'd be a case of picking like the perfect race for me, and then hope you get the perfect conditions, and then hope that nothing goes wrong on the day. So uh, yeah, Copenhagen might be the one, but we went to Copenhagen in a couple of weeks for a weekend, so I'll be doing
Mm.
that country twice. So I don't know, but yeah, in terms of races, I've not planned it out yet. Just kind of going with it. I quite like the idea of doing Ironman Switzerland because that looks like quite a nice race to do,
Mm.
or Austria. Uh, but yeah, in terms of that, Not really too sure yet. I'm doing me level one coaching qualification for triathlon,
Oh,
uh,
cool.
just because I've got a bit of an interest in it, and then I might decide to start coaching as well, in the future. But uh, I'm just that busy with everything else at the moment. Like
Mm.
I think work's going to be pretty full on the next
That's
12
why you need
months.
to post your Instagram,
Well, I
building
know,
up that following.
I know, but even then, like even if I did it, it wouldn't be like it'd just be a little like side thing, like maybe like two or three people, because I
Mm.
it's one of the things that like if I want to do something, I need to like do it to a high level,
Hmm.
and I won't want to just. It'd feel unfair if I like just tried to take on as many people as I could, and then do a
Yeah,
shit job of it.
copy and paste plan.
Yeah, it's like like I'm not really about that. I'd rather just have like a very small few and do it to a pretty high standard. Uh, but yeah, I'm doing that qualification just in case I want to do that, just because I'm quite quiet at the moment and
Mm.
something that I think I'll enjoy doing.
That's
But yeah,
cool, mate. And where can people find you if you want them to find you?
not on Strava. Unless you come for a ride with me, you might be allowed. Yeah, just on Instagram. I wouldn't know what my thing is. It's something mini try.
Yeah,
You probably
I don't think it's massively easy to remember, but I'll link it in the show notes regardless.
yeah, you're probably better off asking my wife to be honest. She no, she's brilliant. Like, well, I haven't even touched on it, but like, I couldn't do what I do without, like, I couldn't do it on my own. Like,
Mm.
she does so much. Like, she's not currently training for a race herself. Uh, but we got like a dog as well, and like most, we kind of share the dog walks in the morning. But then even if I'm on the turbo, she'll take the dog out and then start doing whatever, getting dinner ready and that. But yeah, couldn't do it without her. And yeah, no one's doing it alone. Even all the top guys, they've got teams of
Yeah.
people getting them to that level. Uh, yeah, it's the same with anything. Like you can do it on your own, but I don't think you'll enjoy it as much. Uh, and yeah, I think it'll just be a lot harder.
Yeah, that's awesome, and like it definitely comes across like you've mentioned
Yeah,
like a lot of times, and it's evident just how much she means to you, and I'm
yeah.
sure how much you mean to her as well. So, all right, last bit. So before we wrap up, I'd like to share two reflective questions. The first is for you personally. So, what's one question you need to ask yourself as you start the day? The second is for the audience. What's one question or prompt that they should ask themselves that might bring the most value to their day?
I think for me, it comes back to what we were saying before about I I guess I am quite a private person in terms of what I do, and I certainly don't almost like understand the impact that I actually have on people in terms of like my actual achievements. Again, because I only really do it for myself. Yeah, I don't understand the full effect of like how other people perceive that. Uh, so I guess in a question, it's like what again what could I do that would help inspire someone else to take it up? It's probably almost
Mm,
like a way to phrase it. Like what could I do to make other people better by using, I guess, the platform that I've got? Is probably a way to phrase it. Uh, and then like yeah, for everyone else, I guess it's
let's assume maybe they're either a beginner athlete or a young athlete, or What's a question they could ask themselves or a reflection?
It's probably more just make sure you have an understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. Whether that is, like me, like I'm doing it solely for myself, because it's what I enjoy doing, or if it's because you want to, put it all over your Instagram. Just make sure you understand why you're doing what you're doing, and make sure you're doing it for the right reasons for yourself. Is probably the one I'd say.
Awesome. Yeah, man, that's really insightful, and this has been great. It's been great chatting to you. I really appreciate you opening up about all sorts of stuff. We've been going for almost 3 hours,
Quite a long
which
one.
is a good old stint for your first ever podcast. But I do think that like your whole approach and your modesty around kind of not sharing stuff kind of paradoxically is quite inspiring to other people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I include myself in that because I'm fucking all about the likes and stuff. So it's I appreciate you telling us all about your training and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's cool as fuck.
I do appreciate people showing an interest. I'm not. I don't want to come across as like being standoffish, but
No, I don't think you do. I don't think you do. I think some people are just more private, and I think people respect that.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, have a great evening, and everyone who's listening, check out all the stuff in the show notes, and I'll hope to see you in person sometime.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Nice one. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's me. Thank you so much for watching that episode, and congratulations for making it all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. A few things before you get going. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And if you enjoyed this episode, the kindest thing you can do for me is to share it with a friend or family member. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to both my guests and myself. And if you made it this far, why don't you drop me a DM? Good news is Fraser was able to get that 10% offer from Kendall Minnican. I'm not affiliated with them, but if you want to check out the code in the show notes, then fill your boots.